Welcome back to the Gen 20 podcast. I'm Nicole.
And I'm Marina, and today we're talking to Xenia Chen, founder of Threads, about one of the goal-setting strategies she swears by as a business owner.
Okay, so to start, can you tell us a little bit about Threads and your idea behind the company and where it started?
Yeah, for sure. So I started off my career in finance. I was working in investment banking and private equity. I was wearing a lot of business attire, so business suits, skirts, dresses, and along with that, I was also wearing tights and pantyhose. And I just found that there wasn't really a brand out there that was both high quality and low price, especially because you're, going through them all the time. And on top of that, I thought all the brands out there were very old fashioned and antiquated. The whole shopping experience was like not fun, not exciting, and not convenient. And it seemed like every time I spoke about this to one of my female colleagues, you get the same almost like visceral reaction. So that's kind of how the idea started. I first thought of it in 2015, but didn't really get started on it until 2018. It just got to the point where I was just thinking about it all the time, and I was like, you know what? If somebody else does this tomorrow, I'm going to be really upset at myself. So I just sort of went for it. So we're about 2 years old, and what we do is we take the traditional supply chain and we shrink it. So instead of, going from the factory to the distributor and then paying like a brand markup or retail markup, we're able to really just take that supply chain and minimize it and boil it down to what's actually necessary. So we work directly with our factory in Italy, and we sell online. We own our own brand and own our own distribution. So it's truly like a simple, modern brand, really offering to women by women.
That's amazing. We are all about the for women by women. So we're super excited to be talking to you today. And when we first started emailing with you, you mentioned your goal setting strategy, which I'd love to hear about, and Nicole would too. I'm going to speak for her, because it sounds like you thought about Threads for 6 years. It's entering its third year. How do you set yourself up for that?
Yeah, so I think my overall goal setting strategy for work and also my personal life is looking at it from top down. So that's looking at it from, okay, what's my long-term goal? Like, what's my long-term vision? And then really boiling it down and making a roadmap that's digestible. So what I mean by that is, let's say you, in 5 years, I want to have 10 different products. I want to be in 3 different countries. So you say, okay, that is, the long-term strategy. How do I get there? So what do I have to do this year? And even further than that, what do I have to do quarter by quarter? So really just like writing down all the steps and boiling it down to even like the month and the week. I find that really makes any goal way easier to tackle. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I like the whole like working backwards kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you adjust your plan if you like say you don't meet your like quarterly goals? Like where do you go from there?
Yeah, so that is something that happens like all the time. I think especially in an early stage business, there's so much uncertainty. And a lot of the times, like the problem you go out to solve initially is not the problem you end up solving like a year down the line or 2 years down the line. Like you end up discovering new things about your customers and what they want and what they need. So I think being able to be adaptable is a very key part to goal setting. And like, I don't mean adaptable by like, let's just say you want to drink more water. And like, that's your goal and you set a goal for yourself. Like I'm going to drink starting with like 1 liter a day and then 2 liters a day. By adaptable, I don't mean like, okay, if you don't meet your goal, today, like I'm going to just like scrap it. I mean by, having like enough self-discipline and being honest with yourself to know, okay, did I not meet this goal because of external factors, or is it because I haven't, is it sort of an internal issue, or is it something that I need to adjust within myself? So, all that being said, I think, especially 2020, I'm sure at the end of 2019, no one thought that they were going to have the year that we did. Um,
Mhm.
so I think, if you don't meet one of your short-term goals, like that's totally okay. I think, again, like having that, I think this is why having the long-term vision is important. It's kind of like your North Star in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to see the stuff that you do week to week, month to month as sort of steps to heading to that, North Star metric or destination. Obviously, growth is nonlinear. It's going to be, like very up and down. But I think as long as the slope is heading in the direction that you want to be going in, like that's totally okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what would you say is a good way, especially for smaller businesses or for people who are just doing this in their personal life, to to figure out what goal they want to set to use this method?
That's a really good question. I think it varies based on, if it's like in your personal life or your professional career. And, even if it's your professional career, like I think it's different if you are working in the corporate world versus if you are starting your own business. So I really think my default is to think big, like to dream long term, and then
Mm-hmm.
again, like really boiling it down. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen in 10 years. It's like very unrealistic to be like, I'm going to hit this revenue figure in 10 years.
Mhm.
But you can say stuff like, okay, in 10 years, not only do I want to build a business, but I want to start a podcast and maybe launch a line of, X products, and then sort of like work backwards from there. And also, another thing that I'm going to say is I think during goal setting, it's important to focus on factors that you can control.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say I'm starting a podcast, and I set a really, like big goal for myself that I want to speak with Elon Musk, by the end of like my second year or something. I mean, that's definitely a lofty goal, but if you break down it if you break it down into steps, like okay, in Elon Musk's network, like who do you think, um, like who does he know, and then who do they know, and then who do they know? Maybe they know, maybe it's like a fourth degree connection. Again, just like really boiling it down to things that you can control instead of just thinking, okay, well maybe if I just keep on tweeting at Elon Musk, like he'll reply eventually. So I'm a huge believer in just like taking things into your own hands whenever possible. I don't know if you've heard the quote, um, the harder I work, the better my luck turns out to be. I think there's an element of luck in everything, but I do think um, the more you take things into your own hands, the better your luck is going to be.
Yeah, you kind of make your own luck. I believe in that too.
Totally.
It's you got to sometimes make your own opportunities too, and we've seen that I think a lot, especially in the last year of just like figuring out how to pivot because Plan A is not working, and with the
Mhm.
pivot is new goals, new ways to achieve those goals, and I think the
Yeah.
big picture definitely helps when the bigger the picture, the like more you can see into the horizon, and so you can like look left, and if you're like, all right, well the main focus isn't working, so I'm gonna like adjust a little bit to the right. I think that
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And I think a lot of it is also a mindset issue, or not, maybe not an issue, but it's a mindset perspective that you have to take. Like, I think I'm such a believer in every opportunity or every challenge presents an opportunity. And, 2020 was like the biggest test of that. There's so many times where, I think as an early stage business, we went into 2020 like so excited, so much momentum. We had all these plans for new product launches. And,
yeah, it was supposed to be our
obviously,
year.
Yeah.
yeah, totally, and I think a lot of the times, like, instead of thinking, this sucks. A lot of my initial plans got canceled. Like thinking that way, if you sort of tweak your mindset and instead think, okay, what are the new opportunities that are coming from this? Like we're spending more time at home. We are now, like cutting down the commute time. Like just thinking about all the positives that can come from a situation. I think that is so powerful because the reality of it is like you can set like 100 goals for yourself, but it's probably unlikely that you're going to be able to meet all of them. So to be in the right mindset to think, okay, that's fine if I don't meet this goal, it's not the end of the world. Like, what can I do to pivot from this? Or like, what is this opportunity or what is this incident teaching me? I think that's even more powerful than sometimes meeting the goal itself.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And like in regards to 2020 and like your business and everything, so you like predominantly make clothes for like pantyhose and stuff for women who are going into an office, right? So how did you see things change in 2020, like with your business and your customers and like what they wanted? And how did you like pivot from that in 2020 when like quarantines and lockdowns and people are working from home? Like I'm really curious what you did.
Yeah, so it obviously, I started this company because I thought so many women wear tights to work, and not just people who wear tights into the office, but there's like flight attendants, people in the service industry, and obviously those industries all got hit pretty hard by COVID. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I remember at the beginning of March, it was like terrible. It was like, what am I going to do? We don't even know what if there's going to be an end to this. Like we're still really in the thick of it. Um, so, I mean, two things. So, one of the things, like you discovered new customer segments, you discover that there's actually a lot of people who wear tights at home. There's a lot of older
Mm.
women and men actually who wear tights at home. So that's like a new customer demographic that we started really embracing and cultivating and trying to learn more about. And as a result, we're actually going to launch new products that are more targeted towards them in 2021, which is again not an opportunity that I would have really found if
Mm-hmm.
it was status quo. So feel really like thankful about that. And then second, we actually started using some of our manufacturing capacity to make face masks. Um,
Oh,
yeah, so our factory's in Italy, and they were one of the first countries to be hit really hard by COVID. And so we're based in Canada, and we sort of saw everything happening over there like 2 months ahead of what was happening here. And we noticed that they were all of a sudden going from this like non-mask wearing society to a mask wearing society because of the mask shortage. So we decided pretty early on that we were going to reconfigure some of our machines to start making masks instead of tights. So we launched that initiative the same day that the health minister in Canada announced the recommendation to wear masks.
nice.
So it was actually like really good timing, and that has been a huge revenue stream this year. And not only that, but I think from like a brand recognition perspective, that's been really helpful for our brand. And like there's lots of people who hadn't heard of us before, but then they bought face masks, and then now they're super excited to buy tights when the pandemic is over. So like that's been really great. Again, like very kind of had to think out of the box. That definitely was not in our plan at the end of 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think both those things what like are good things for the business in the long term, but wouldn't have happened if COVID didn't happen. And I think like other things would have happened, like our initial plans, if if we weren't living in a pandemic world. But I
Mm-hmm.
think again, like in both those instances, like your mindset is really important, right? Instead of like my attitude is always like, okay, if there's a setback, like of course take the time to mourn that setback or to be upset about it. But after that, like let's think about what are the ways or what are the steps that we can take to overcome this setback, or what are the opportunities that this opportunity or what are the opportunities that this situation is presenting me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny. I feel like so often in life we see our growth and our progress and just our life plan in general as linear. But if you ask anyone, hey, when you first graduated college or finished high school, your initial goal or plan, did that work out? And I bet you everyone will say, no, for me, I'm on plan like Q. Okay. I just
Yeah,
keep trying
yeah.
new things. And it's so important. And mindset really helps with reframing, because a lot of times, Nicole and I've talked about failure in the past, in past episodes, but a lot of times it feels like if the goal you set or the plan you're trying didn't work out, that you've failed. But really, it's just an opportunity for you to like reframe or pivot, or whichever word you want, to kind of find maybe the direction you're more meant to be going in.
100%. I don't know if you've ever heard, um, so Steve Jobs has this very famous speech that he gave to like a graduating class like some years ago. And there was this one point he made where he said, sometimes things will just be happening to you in life, and it only really makes sense when you look back. It's only when you look back that point A times ties to point B, ties to point C, and it all really makes sense in retrospect.
Mhm.
So it's important to just sort of like have faith in the process and to understand that sometimes things don't work out for a reason, and that's going to lead you to something better. Um, I actually think that some of the best things that have happened to me, or the most, pivotal things that have changed my life for the better, have been a result of something like quote unquote bad happening before that, like me not getting
Mhm.
something that I thought I wanted, or whether it was like not getting a job I wanted, or like a really bad breakup. Like it's really interesting because I think the older you get, the more you realize this. So these setbacks don't feel as heavy versus when you're in high school, everything feels like the end of the world because you don't have this experience.
Yeah.
um, so I do think that's definitely the beauty of getting older and just having more of these life lessons, is you realize like, okay, like this thing didn't work out and it sucks, but I know that there's something better out there, and it's coming.
Yeah, it's almost like a coping skill in a way that you kind of get as you get older. And you're like, okay, well, now I can see that, yeah, this does suck, but it's fine. Things will work out.
Yeah. And it
Totally.
helps too when your brain finally finishes developing and you have like more emotional and hormonal control of
Hmm.
seeing things a little bit more clearly. Because I know when I was 22, everything was huge and dramatic and the end of the world. And now that I'm essentially 30, it's like, well, I'll try again tomorrow. It'll be fine.
100%. I totally agree. And we have humans, we have something called the decline bias, which is we tend to think that whatever's happening to us right now is like the worst that it's ever been.
Hmm.
Just because, you remember when a situation in the past was bad or good, but you don't really understand just how bad or just how good. Um, so I am a huge fan of journaling, and I write down whenever I'm really upset or if I'm really happy, just like really emotional, either way. And I like to look back on those past journal entries when, like, let's just say today I'm feeling really bad about a situation. I like to look at my past entries and really read like just how terrible I was feeling at the time, and then realizing like, oh, but I survived that even though I was feeling really terrible. So like I will survive this. And I think the older you get, like, the more journal entries you accumulate. And I find that to be like a really interesting time capsule, if you will,
Hmm.
of just like all your growth that has happened.
Yeah, I've saved all my journals. I do the same thing. I try to journal every day so I have a more like holistic view of what I've gone through, but it really ends up that I just journal when I'm like really excited about something or really unhappy about something, which is fine. But
Mhm.
I have a box of like very beat up journals that I've carried around with me in every place I've
That's
moved.
amazing. That's awesome.
Gosh. I am the opposite. I do not journal really. And I'm not like a very emotional person, like either happy or unhappy.
Yeah,
Like
you're very even keeled.
That's
yeah, I don't
great.
know. It's I don't like I'm when the good things happen, I'm like, yeah, this is great, and then bad things happen, I'm like, it's fine. Like we'll get through it. It'll be okay. I don't know. It's just so interesting to me to like think about having this like time capsule of like how you felt. I don't know. Like it kind of makes me wish I had it just so I could see what I was thinking during then, but it would probably just be entries of like it was fine.
Yeah, it's so interesting. We're all so different as humans. And I was having this conversation with my husband the other day. I think as humans, whether you're an entrepreneur or, whatever your job is or whatever you do with your time, like you're going to encounter times where it's really rough and there's going to be times where it's really good. And I think the sooner you discover what your personal medicine is to get through the bad times, like the easier I guess your life is going to be going forward. Is like everyone has their specific mix of like what they rely on to get through like tough times, right? I think for some people it's like working out a lot or like exercise, and other people it's taking really long walks, and like for me it's journaling, and for you it's something different. um so yeah, I find that part really interesting. We're also unique as humans.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why it's important to remember that growth isn't linear, and what Nicole's doing isn't going to work for me, and what Xenia's doing might not be my goal. And so we're all succeeding and growing in our own way that we're meant to be, which I think can be hard when you, especially when you're younger and you set out to have these big ideas and big plans and can't quite get to where you want to be because you're not ready to be there yet.
Definitely.
All right. So we can talk about some like I guess our last question was don'ts in goal setting that you see that like kind of trips people up when it comes to like setting their goals or reaching the goals. Like what do you think about that?
Don't. I think being vague with your goals is not helpful. Um, Again, like I think vague goals are good for more long-term visions or themes. Like let's just say you feel like you could probably be healthier, right? So you set a long-term vision for yourself, like I want to be healthier. But then again, like boiling it down, you need to write certain things that will help you get to that end goal. So does that mean eating better? Does that mean working out more? Does that mean, less screen time? And then after that, it's like, all right, let's just say I want to eat better. And then boiling it down to, okay, what do I need in my diet, or what do I take out of my diet? And then again, boiling it down to, all right, I'm going to eat like at least one or two vegetables a day. So, okay, like, you write it down, you have a habit tracker, but then boiling it back to your grocery list every week, right? So maybe that means like writing your two vegetables on the top of your grocery list. Like, I think it's all about like being as specific as possible and writing down those things as often as possible. I read an article somewhere that was saying, the more often you write down your goals, the more likely you are to achieve them. So, that could mean writing them down at the beginning of every day or before you go to bed every night. So it's always sort of top of mind. But I definitely think one of the biggest things that keeps people from reaching their goals is being too vague and not being purposeful enough with what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. Other than that, I think, yeah, the vagueness is one of them. Oh, and also I think just being too ambitious and not being honest with yourself is another one. I think maybe the theme of this call should be like just being honest with yourself and like
Yeah.
Yeah.
reflecting within. But if you're trying to be healthy and you want to be more active, and you're currently someone who does not get any movement in a day, it's probably not realistic to set a goal for yourself to work out 1 hour every single day. Like at that point, you're just almost setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
So, I would start small. This is also good for us because as humans, we like to build confidence and we like to feel good about, obviously, if you're good at something, you want to do that thing more. That's just um, natural. So, maybe that could be like, okay, every day I'm going to just like get up for 10 minutes and do like a little stretch, or you take a walk twice a week. And during that walk, I'm going to do something like fun, like I'm going to call my mom or I'm going to call my best friend. Um, so things that are like setting small goals and then building upon them, I think that is um, it's definitely important. And just being honest with yourself and saying like, okay, am I actually going to do this? If not, what's one goal that's maybe like a step down? Um, and then the third thing is, I mentioned this before, but just, setting goals that are within your control. So things that you can actually do instead of waiting for like an outside factor or an outside force. I
Mhm.
really think it does boil down to what you can control and what you can do every single day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's a really fair point because you can't always control like what's happening to you, what's going on around you, but you can control what you're doing and how you're reacting and what steps you want to take. And I don't think that if you're constantly waiting for someone else's like validation or permission or approval or whatever it is you need to like move forward, that you're never going to actually move forward and reach your goals.
100%. I think, the worst phrase for me is like, when blank, I will blank.
Oh yeah.
It's like that, if you wait for that thing, it's not going to happen, right?
Mhm.
So I think this past year has taught us that nothing is guaranteed and our time is not guaranteed. So if there's something out there that you want to do, or if there's a habit that you want to start making a part of your life, like today is the day to do it. At least today is the day to start thinking about steps that will get you there.
So I think one thing that's really important to remember with just life in general, but definitely when you're setting goals and is kind of what you were saying, Xenia, is like we don't have any control over the future. We saw that already with this year and last year. But also we have no ability to change the past. All we can do is kind of look at it because, hindsight's 2020. So use what you learned in the past and what you hope for the future and just work on it now. I think it's I'm definitely trying to be more present because it's easy to say like, well, I'm not ready to do that, so I'll do it next year. And it's like, well, we don't know about next year. It could explode again. So work
Exactly.
on it
No,
now.
for sure. Yeah, like I really don't like it when people say, this year was just or sorry, not this year, last year was just a write-off. It's like, you're
No,
right,
that was the year of your life.
yeah, exactly. It was a year of your life and you don't know if 2021 is going to be better. Like it could be worse. Like, knock on all the wood. Um, but yes, 2020 did not turn out to be the year that most people envisioned, but that doesn't mean there's no room for growth. That doesn't mean there's no room for, developing new skills or new hobbies or just, like even if you did not do anything, that's totally fine, but it was still a year of your life.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I don't like it when people discount that. Like just because something didn't go your way doesn't mean you can just like white it out.
Mhm.
Yeah. Like a perfect example is I used to run a literary magazine that I started, and at the beginning of 2020, the middle of 2020, at this point I don't remember what time, but I decided to shut it down because I had huge goals for myself for the magazine that weren't happening, and I realized the block was me. I wasn't into it, and my heart wasn't into it in the same way.
Mhm.
And I realized that I wanted to be spending my time working on a novel and working on building out my own business elsewhere. And I could have just been like, well, okay, I'll just delete it, and it's gone and it was out. And I was like, no, I like took the time to kind of mourn it and said like, I learned a lot doing this, and I'm sad it didn't become what I had dreamed for it, but I did learn a lot, and I'm grateful, and I'm shutting it down now. And I think that it's
That's
easy
great.
to just say like, oh, that failed and I suck. And it was like, well, didn't go how I planned, but I'm not gonna extend any more time into it either, trying to fix it. I want to pivot
Mhm.
to put energy into something else.
Yeah, I think that's so beautiful. That's awesome that you were
Yeah.
able to do that.
2020, man, a weird year,
Yeah,
terrible
such
year.
a great year.
Some positives, but
I don't know. It wasn't all that bad.
On like a bigger scheme, really bad things happened, but on a personal level, mostly good things happened. Like a lot of
Yeah.
clarity that I needed to come to and was
Mhm.
kind of
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
forced to
there
see.
definitely, it was, a bad year for the world and in terms of the pandemic and everything. But I think just like looking at it from my personal life and like point of view, like I don't know, I can't look at it like it was a bad year. It was a very pivotal year.
Hmm.
Maybe not for the best reasons, but
No, I totally agree. And it's almost like sometimes I feel guilty of saying that it wasn't like a terrible year or whatever, because
Hmm.
obviously, it was a bad year for the world. But um, I mean, I got married in 2020 and
Yay!
I was able to
congratulations.
spend, thanks, I was able to spend so much more time with my husband than ever before. I think before we were just going at like 100 miles a minute.
Hmm.
Um,
Mhm.
we're both working from home now, and so we're eating lunch and dinner together every day, and it's just like so amazing. And I don't think we would have ever really had the chance to slow down if it weren't for this year. And I'm so thankful for that. And um, so I totally agree with you. Like it wasn't totally all a bad year, and I think it's sometimes the years that are hardest for personal growth are the years that you look back on and you're like, wow, thank God that happened. That year helped me. It sort of propelled me to go
Mhm.
the next few years, right? Um,
Mhm.
Absolutely. That
so yeah, I
completely
get that.
resonates. Awesome. Well, Xenia, this has been so great. We're so happy you joined us, and I can't wait to go shopping. I have some threads in mind. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so they can find us at yourthreads.co. So yourthreads.co. And you can actually get 20% off your first order with the code GEN20. So GENTWENTY.
That's
You can also
Thank
amazing.
you so
follow us
much.
on Instagram. We're threads.co.
On
Okay.
Instagram. Perfect. Oh my gosh. Well, we can't wait to share this episode with our audience, and we will be spamming your feed with our content when that day comes. But
Awesome. Looking
thank
forward
you.
to it. This is so much fun.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. And Nicole, you want to sing us out?
Yeah, this has been another episode of the Gen 20 podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. We love if you leave a rating and a review, and we'll catch you again soon. Bye.